What is up, y'all? We are in the last hours of Hanukkah. I guess we would say we'll be lasting until sundown. We're in day 2 of the solstice. So last night, the last thing I did before I went to bed was burn my first night's wish or intention. I used my iron cauldron for fire safety, so make sure you're in a safe situation. Doing it in a still sink is nice because you could just turn the water on if things get a little out of hand, but it should be on a small piece of paper. Well, anywho, we are here for our weekly anchor message, and starting with our wild unknown archetypes, we have the thread, followed by the orphan, followed by the lover. Now this anchor message of the week, it basically gives us the essence of our spiritual assignments, like the themes that we'll be dealing with through the week. So underneath the thread, we have Queen of Pentacles. Underneath the orphan, we have 10 of Swords. And underneath the lover, we've got the Chariot. All right, I'm going to pause this and let you guys look at the spread while you listen to the audio. It's about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and then we'll be right back. Loosen the cords of our mistakes that bind us as we release the cords with which we have bound others. This is from the original Lord's Prayer, translated from Aramaic. The gate that unlocks the miracle is forgiveness. The Queen of Pentacles stands in sovereignty and abundance as she looks back on her past, having made peace. She brings an offering of all that she has grown and offers it in humility, even to the trials and tribulations. This moment unlocks the forgiveness that can finally dissolve the patterns that we perpetuated, that were perpetuated by the wounded child within. Perhaps our feelings of abandonment at an early age have been echoed in ways that we have abandoned ourselves time and time again. Understanding the soul contracts that we have with one another helps us shift our perception enough to begin to untangle our knotted fates and dismantle these patterns and unconscious beliefs. The Queen looks back in peace and acceptance, understanding that everything she went through, the good, the bad, the ugly, has served to bring her into her sovereignty and authority. In order to become the Queen, we must choose unification. The Queen is Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers. But while he was in exile in bondage, he rose through the ranks and became a king of Egypt and keeper of the storehouse. After many years, his brothers showed up in need of Joseph's help. In that moment, Joseph chose to forgive, reunifying not only his house, but all the tribes. Forgiveness came from understanding that without his descent into challenge, Joseph would never have overcome the oppression of his egoic mind. Now Joseph rules over that which enslaved him. The thing that binds you can be broken through forgiveness. That might be the one thing standing between you and true fulfillment. Okay, so when I hold the cards up to you guys, because of the orientation of the camera, I'm not sure that you're seeing the images in the same orientation that I'm seeing them. So when you refer back to the spread, what it looks like is the Queen of Pentacles looking back on her past, right? And so what do we know about the Queen of Pentacles? That she is grounded, that she has mastered the realm of the physical as far as the feminine goes, about having her house in order. The proverb about the woman of valor comes to mind, like she does not eat the bread of idleness. You know, she prepares food for her household and servants for her, and portions for her servant girls. You know, her lamp never goes out at night. And so it talks about, when you talk about the feminine in scripture or in myth, that represents the soul. And so we are all in relation to divine, the feminine, because we want to receive the feminine and pair, or we want to receive the light, the masculine, and pair with that light, right? So when we see the feminine, it's talking about the soul, right? So the soul is realizing, and so the 8th day of Hanukkah is the day that the miracle is revealed, right? The 7 days are the 7 days of creation that make up the week. That's the natural realm. But once we get into the 8th, that's when the miracle is revealed. So we go back to the Aramaic translation of the original Lord's Prayer, the part where it says, loosen the cords of our mistakes that bind us, as we release the cords with which we have bound others. It's talking about, how New Age people talk about cutting the cords and completing soul contracts, and that has a lot of truth to it. They're just like kind of repackaging what is true in Tikkun Olam and like the wisdom of Kabbalah. So in the Anaba Koach, the 42 letter names of God, or the 42 word name of God, there is a line that says, like, loosen the cord, lift thy right hand of mercy and loosen the tangled cords of our fates, or something to that effect. I can't remember the exact words, but you get the idea of the right hand column of mercy, mercy, giving, compassion, forgiveness, untangling the knotted fates that are these ties and these strings that connect us through these soul contracts that we play out for one another to ultimately reveal the full light of our soul. But we have to go through these complex, mysterious experiences with one another and all play these parts in them. So as these soul contracts come to a fruition and a completion, they ultimately are there to serve our greatest becoming. And so there is a point in the journey to forgiveness everyone has to go through, where you have accepted the hard feelings, and you've really, accepted the pain and what that means and how you perceive the whole thing, and go through that. And then after a while, I think you can unpack it and glean from it and see that, like, as you've gotten distance, the experience over time can serve to make you resilient and wise and compassionate, and it can deepen you and give you more flavor, more richness. And so when you can see how that served your ultimate becoming, right? Like when Joseph became the king of Egypt, he couldn't have done that unless he had gone down into slavery. And what that represents is we can't master our consciousness unless we go down into our shadows and face that which has control over us, which is our reactive nature, which is our egoic perspective, our carnal mind. So it's not until we face those demons directly and wrestle them and have dominion over them that we can rise above them and then rule over them, right? Those demons no longer tempt you into despair and lusts and despondency and conflicts, right? Because they can't get a hold. There's not a gap for them to get in. So we see here that this queen has come to some kind of fruition and completion in her journey, and has gained so much in the process, so much stability, so much grounded wisdom, so much anchored spiritual change that is embodied and brought through into her physical fruits that she bears, and the ability to take care of herself and the people around her, and to nurture and to build and to be creative and regenerative. Right? The Queen of Pentacles is known for being able to handle things in the material realm and nurture things being birthed in the material realm. So she's abundant and she's fertile. And so she looks back on her past and kind of holds this offering of all the things that she's grown and the fruits of her virtue that has come from her experience. And so she can look back at her trials and tribulations, not in bitterness, not in conflict, but in acceptance. And even at a certain point, when we reach a maturity in the spectrum or the journey of forgiveness, it's like we can even appreciate the difficulties, because then we realize that's what gave us that piss and vinegar and that chutzpah and that fighting spirit, or made us determined to overcome like an adversity that made us the best at the thing and delivered like a miracle through that. You never know, right? So you just have to see, okay, all of this led to this, right? So the other, part of that lesson where Joseph had to go down into slavery to become the king of Egypt, that was the ruler over all the storehouse, right? Joseph is connected to that sacral chakra and that astral realm where all things pass through to be able to be manifested in this world. Souls come and go through this realm. All of our blessings are passed through this channel. And so if Joseph is the ruler or the keeper of that channel, then what gave him the ultimate opening of that channel was when his brothers, who actually sold him into slavery, were fallen on hard times, and they came to Egypt to try to get their case heard or whatever. So they had to go before him, not realizing who it was, but he recognized them. And Joseph decided, instead of holding that moment to be an overlord and put it in their face and have revenge, he forgave them and went to hug them and bring them in an embrace. And that was the unification, the reunification of our fragmented separation and division that keeps us in strife and keeps us cut off from our blessings. And instead we reunified through love, sharing, mercy, compassion, giving, acceptance, right? And so we became whole again, not only within the self, but in our outer world. So what happened was that through this reunification, Joseph's father, Jacob, the patriarch, who was fallen on hard times because of his grief, and he was disconnected from the Shekinah, who is the spirit of God that brings sustenance and joy and fulfillment and peace and wellness. That can't happen when we aren't in vibrational resonance. So as Jacob was in grief, he was also experiencing like years of curses, what it felt like, which weren't curses, but it was just like, friction and chaos and difficulty. And so when his sons were reunited and he discovered that Jacob wasn't dead, but in fact he was like a king, he was like, oh my gosh, all his joy and blessing and vitality and health and well-being was instantly returned and restored to him. So not only was Jacob's family restored, but the 12 tribes of Israel, which are the souls that are trying to deepen their connection with the Creator by keeping that covenant and building affinity with the Creator, the tribes came into unification and oneness and harmony and prosperity for a time as well. So, having said that, we are in this point of Hanukkah, where the whole point of Hanukkah is to going into that darkness and then finding redemption and salvation, forgiveness, and giving that forgiveness and redemption, right? Give and receive in equal kind. And so in order to do that, in order to get through to our ultimate success or having our blessings revealed, the chariot represents our mastery over a dimension. When like the patriarchs are called, like for instance, Joseph is the chariot of Yesod. He has mastered Yesod, and he is the bringer force, or like the physical embodiment of that dimension's energy and in the perfected state of that dimension or that attribute, right? So our perfection and our growth and our next level and our success and our forward progress is going to come from the lover, right? The lover is the choice to overcome the lazy innate nature, the easy nature of the soul to choose for the self or to receive instant gratification, and instead choose the path of love, choose the path that the soul is going to reach for God, right? The feminine in the Lover's card is facing the praying to Archangel Raphael, and facing the east, facing the sun. And so we are choosing the path of love, choosing from the heart, choosing the path of divine guidance, which is going to lead us to the ultimate fulfillment of our destiny. But the thing that's blocking the way is going to be overcoming this wound that is tied into a feeling of like the orphan, combined with like resulting patterns, like negative thought patterns, behavioral patterns, emotional patterns, unconscious beliefs, unconscious influences that have controlled and like dominated our reactivity. And so they are stemmed from early childhood wounds where we felt feelings of abandonment. In our childlike perception, we perceived, oh, I'm being abandoned, right? We were feeling the experience of the archetype of abandonment, even though we were never abandoned. Like you try to explain this to your parents and get defensive. They're like, we never abandoned you. It's not that, right? It's something deeper. It's like something on a soul level. It can happen in a very symbolic, an indirect seemingly way, right, in a lot of ways, right? And so then that gets like planted in our subconscious, and as we grow older we have these unconscious programming like in a computer that's got viruses in it, and it prompts our reactions and our perceptions of life. And so we have to go back and like discover what these are and dismantle them, right? And so because otherwise we're going on a default setting that is like self-defeating, and it's actually self-sabotages us every time. It's like we're playing out these patterns that are sort of like ruinous to our progress, and in turn we're kind of echoing or mirroring that feeling that we were abandoned by completely like over and over again abandoning ourselves again and again and again. And sometimes that looks like, oh, I promised myself I would change and create better habits so that I could reveal this light in the world and achieve this goal or dream. And yet you keep pushing it off till the next day, or like you keep backsliding into the old habits. Like you're not determined to make the change and you don't show up for yourself. You want to write a book or go do a thing, and instead of showing up every day and putting work consistently towards that, you keep in this dream fantasy state, and it's never fully realized, right? So those are like examples of self-abandonment. Abandoning all your plans to go codependently enmesh yourself in someone else and their dream, right? And not having your own sense of self next to another person with their sense of self. So it's like we're seeing, oh, okay, I'm seeing the patterns reveal themselves during these days. And so the key to progressing past this block is going back, dismantling that programming, and forgiveness through acceptance that was part of the script, right? And that every single person is going to answer for the part that they play. But that was originally something that you had agreed to when you were cast in the movie that you're in right now. Okay. So it was always there to help tell your story and to help play out your own individual legend. But it's sort of like there's a draft, and then we get to move through that draft and choose our own adventure as we go. It's like having the outline of an episode given to you, but then in between the scenes, you kind of have to improv it, right? So I think I'm going to end this here, because I think we're understanding that in order to bring our lives into unification and align ourselves with that higher destiny, with our next level, with the opportunity that we've been wanting to draw in, with the healing, with the desires of our heart that we've been praying for, there's always this sort of like gauntlet that the hero has to go through, or a rite of passage where they earn their talisman into the next level. And so the talisman that we're trying to get to our next level is going to be achieved through forgiveness and through sort of dismantling the orphaned victim perception and consciousness, and finally having dominion and power over that, so that it doesn't affect you, so that you don't have that wedge between you and the other souls that were put in your story. The whole point of all the souls in our story is to find peace within all the things that all the justified reasons for conflict. We have to rise above that and transcend it, right? When we're in the conflict, that means the demons are in control. We're in bondage. We're not even self-aware. We can't pull ourselves back. We have no sovereignty, right? When we start becoming aware, the demons don't pull the strings anymore. We start to dismantle their illusion, and we see it for what it is, and then we can take a step back and stop participating and eventually hold dominion over that force. And instead of being reactive, it just doesn't have any effect over you at all. And so then in that moment, you transcend that power, and you kind of own that power after that. All right, transference. That is all for today. Don't forget to burn your second intention tonight after dark in a fire-safe situation, but maybe, light some incense, do it with a nice little candle, make it a special little moment of conscious contemplation, meditation, and prayer, and release. And then don't look at your paper, don't read it, don't see which one it is. Okay, ciao.